Okay, here we are at our second site, the upper Kedumba River. So just downstream, there's Cliff Drive. That's where we parked the car. And we've just walked up along the creek here. Just behind us is an oval, and there's what looks like a toilet block / kiosk just over there in the distance. Upstream, I can see a few houses, but not too many. So this is sort of an area where you've got mostly very good bushland behind me and an oval / parkland recreational area. So we're in an upper valley setting. The creek is quite hard against the valley margin. So this is similar to our previous site where the creek was pinned over on the margin. So the riparian zone in the floodplain area here is actually quite narrow, whereas on this side with the oval, it's very broad. It's sort of estimated probably several hundred meters to the other side of the valley. So we've got lots of natural bushland here behind us. We've got our Blue Mountains ash vegetation community. Looks in great condition. I can't see many weed species. We've got a very narrow sort of riparian strip dominated by the ferns. And then on this side of the creek, it's mostly just exotic grasses because of that parkland. So this vegetation's obviously been cleared in the past, similar to our last site. So the channel itself, it's a little bit larger than the previous site. It's still quite a uniform shape. The banks sort of range from vertical to gently sloping. There's a concrete crossing or a concrete weir that's just here behind me. So that's a man-made feature that's been put into the channel. And as a result, it dams the flow upstream, creating a pool, and you've got a small waterfall just downstream of the weir here. At the moment, the flow is probably about sort of low to medium height, and that's because we've had quite a bit of rain, although it's stopped raining now, which is awesome. But the flow does definitely go up as soon as it does rain, but for the moment, it's probably about low to medium flow. Now, we've got quite a few man-made features around this sort of site, and one of those is just here to my left hand. I can smell this funny smell, and it sort of smells a little bit like a sewer line. And you know what? It is. So here we've got a sewer line that is running down the valley. And the reason why they put the sewer lines along the base of the valley is because this is the lowest part of the landscape. So they're trying to drain all the sewage works, and hence they tend to put the sewer lines along the creek. Now the problem is that when you get a lot of rainfall, and if these sewer lines can't cope with the amount of flow in them, the tops will pop off. So this is an inspection point, but this is also a point where the top might pop off and you can have raw sewage actually flowing out. Luckily enough, that's not happening to us today. But I can still smell it. So there's this kind of odor, bit of a sewage odor. It's not that pleasant to stand nearby. Is it affecting the water? Well, the problem with sewer lines is that they tend to leak. And because they're buried underground, it's hard to actually detect where those leaks are. So the only way that you can detect leaking sewage lines is by testing for bacteria like E. coli. If you get high bacterial counts in your water, that's a true sign that you've got contamination by things probably like leaking sewage. It could be a big sewer main like the one that's just here, or it could be someone's own personal sewer pipes coming from their home that's just nearby. It doesn't take a lot for those bacterial counts to go up. The water quality today is not too bad. It's a little bit turbid, and that probably reflects the rainfall. I can't see any other sort of impacts on water. There's no oil slicks or foams. And there's no aquatic vegetation. So apart from the vegetation on the sides of the channel, there's no actual vegetation within the channel. There is a little bit of sediment in the channel, a bit of sand. We'll see actually a little bit further downstream in the pollution trap how much sand has been captured from this creek. I can see some of it in the bed, but otherwise it's a reasonably sort of rocky bed with a bit of sand being transported through. So that's our site 2, our upper Kedumba River. So pan around and have a look and see what else you can observe from the video. Am I writing down numbers? Okay.
0.03 PSS.
0.03 PSS.
Dissolved oxygen percent.
Do you want them to?
73.7%.
Yep.
ORP is 188 millivolts.
Yep. Oh, 188 millivolts?
Yeah.
Okay. What it is?
To bit of G, what were we dividing?
By 4?
8 NTU.
8 NTU. Okay. Buddy?
Okay, so we've got our sample, and what we've done is we've just placed it in the tray. So this is from one net, one 10-metre stretcher stream where we've netted. We've divided that sample, so you can see there's a lot of organic matter in there. So you normally get that. So we just spread it across a couple of the trays. We've had a little bit of water, and then we've got our sample jar here, which has 70% ethanol in it. And here's a question for you that I'll leave you to ponder. So why are we putting them directly into ethanol? What's the purpose of that? So I'll leave that question for you to think, and you can reply via iLearn or however you want. So we've put our sample in here, and now what we're doing is doing what's called a live pick, which is basically looking for anything that's moving in the tray. So we're not trying to get everything, so we actually do it over a time period. It's really just representative amounts. And so we are looking, and what Kerry's doing at the moment is searching through the organic matter, the leaf litter that we've got, for anything that's obvious. And we'll get some things that are the big things that are obvious to start with, but then you'll see things moving around in the water as well. And so we have two devices. We have both our forceps and a pipette. So the forceps, so we can pick up some of the bigger stuff, and then the really small stuff, which we can't pick up with the pipettes, we'll pick up with the forceps. So we'll suck up a few little bugs. So we've got some mites here, and we just squirt them in there. Okay, so we do that for 20 minutes. We do a 20-minute live pick, and that gives us a representation of the types of critters. So we're looking for both the obvious, but also the cryptic ones that might be hidden amongst the leaf litter. So we do it for 20 minutes, and then that's our sample, and that's what we'll give you the results of later. That you'll have to, once again, write up what it means and how the sites compare.
Can't find anything yet. Is that normal?
Depends on the site, of course. Some sites are more diverse and more numerous than others. So,
will the rain have had an impact?
Yes. So we note, obviously, the conditions on the day, and with rain events and large downpours, you get what's called stream drift with our macroinvertebrates. So the bugs will naturally flow downstream, and because we're towards the headwaters of the streams, a lot of the bigger stuff would be have already washed downstream.
Okay, so here we are at a feature that is known as a gross pollutant trap. We're still on the upper Kedumba River. We're just downstream from the last site where we were sampling, and also our first site that we visited is just over there as well. I can see the car park. It's not too far away. So we're just downstream of the confluence where those two streams join. The creek here goes underneath the road. This is Cliff Drive, and then it just comes out here. We're on the downstream side of the road, and the Blue Mountains City Council has put in a feature known as a gross pollutant trap here. Now, gross pollution traps, as the name suggests, are designed to trap gross pollutants. And that can include pollutants like what we would be familiar with, such as rubbish, litter, plastic bottles, chip packets and things. But they're also designed to trap other things going through our streams, such as sand and vegetation. And so what we can see here is our gross pollution trap is actually full of sand and logs and twigs and sticks and leaves. And this is just after the big rainfall event that we had only about a month or so ago. So the way that they design these gross pollutant traps is that this is an access point here. So the council can just drive in here, drive a truck down there or get a little excavator. They can excavate it out, put it onto a truck, and then take all this material away. So like I mentioned, this one is full of sand and litter. It's come from the upstream creeks. I think it's probably particularly come from the upper Kedumba River rather than our unnamed tributary, which was our first site. There's a lot of sediment that's trapped in this gross pollutant trap. But there's also probably likely to be some litter as well, like some rubbish and pollution that may be buried. So maybe we just can't see it. It's on the bottom of the gross pollutant trap. And so how this actually does work is that the water is coming out from underneath the road through the pipes, flowing down into the channel. And there's these little diversion barriers. And those diversion barriers force the flow in a direction into the gross pollution trap. And because the sand and the litter and the rubbish are heavier, they start to sink. And so they drop out of the flow. And so the rest of the flow going downstream is, in theory, much, much cleaner. Now, when I say in theory, that's because gross pollution traps only work well if they're maintained. If they're not maintained, in other words, if they fill up, then they actually become quite useless and irrelevant. So the council needs to get out here pretty soon and come and excavate this out, at least before we have the next big rainfall event, for this gross pollutant trap to maintain its optimum efficiency and effectiveness in trying to keep our Kedumba River much, much cleaner downstream.